Most people believe the best leaders are loved. They think warmth creates loyalty. They think kindness creates commitment. But power does not operate on sentiment alone. Niccolò Machiavelli observed something uncomfortable. It is safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That statement is often misunderstood. It is not about cruelty. It is about reliability. Love is emotional. Fear is structural. And when pressure enters the room, emotions change. Structure remains. People hear fear and imagine tyranny. They imagine shouting aggression. Domination. That is not what Machiavelli meant. He was studying political survival, specifically, how leaders maintain stability when circumstances shift. Love depends on affection. Affection depends on personal benefit. When benefit disappears, so does loyalty. Fear in his framework was not terror, it was predictable consequence. The fear of losing status, the fear of losing opportunity, the fear of crossing a boundary that will be enforced. Now here's where it gets interesting. In modern life, the same psychology operates quietly. Respect begins with perception. If people believe you are incapable of enforcing consequences, your authority becomes optional. In workplaces, this shows up clearly. A manager who wants to be liked avoids difficult conversations. They soften criticism. They delay decisions. At first, the team feels comfortable. But gradually, standards slip. Deadlines stretch. Rules bend. Boundaries blur. Why? Because affection does not create pressure. And without pressure, performance becomes negotiable. This is the tension Machiavelli understood. Being loved feels good. But it does not automatically create discipline. Fear, in a strategic sense, is clarity. It is the understanding that actions have outcomes. A leader who applies consequences calmly, not emotionally, creates stability. No yelling, no humiliation, no chaos. Just enforcement. When expectations are clear and consequences are consistent, something powerful happens. People adjust their behavior without constant reminders. This is not cruelty. It is structural respect. And structural respect survives emotional shifts. Consider two supervisors. The first wants harmony. They tolerate lateness. They forgive repeated mistakes without correction. They are liked. But when a crisis arrives, their authority collapses. No one feels urgency. The second supervisor is composed, polite, measured, but firm. Miss a deadline repeatedly, and privileges change. Ignore standards, and responsibilities shift. No anger, just outcome. Over time, employees feel something deeper than affection. They feel alignment. They understand the system. And this predictability creates security. Now this is important. Fear without fairness becomes instability. But fear with fairness becomes order. Machiavelli used the concept of vert to describe strength of character, not morality, capacity, competence, self-command. A leader ruled by emotion cannot sustain either love or fear. If you enforce rules one day and ignore them the next, you create confusion. Fear must be controlled, applied well, measured, strategic severity when necessary. Cruelty applied well, in Machiavellian terms, meant decisive correction early, so that prolonged suffering is avoided later. In modern terms, this means address problems immediately. Do not let resentment accumulate. Do not punish randomly. Now here's the danger. Many people misunderstand firmness and become rigid, and rigidity invites rebellion. Love operates differently. It is built through warmth, empathy, shared experience. It creates emotional loyalty. In stable environments, love can be extremely powerful. When people feel valued, they go beyond minimum effort. They protect your reputation. They defend your decisions. They invest emotionally. This is why the ideal state, according to Machiavelli, is to be both feared and loved. But if forced to choose, fear is safer. Why? Because love depends on reciprocity. If you must make an unpopular decision, cut budgets, deny promotions, enforce standards, love weakens. Fear, when rooted in fairness, does not. Here is where most people fail. They try to be loved first. They delay firmness. They build identity around approval. And when they finally attempt enforcement, it feels unnatural, inconsistent, personal. People sense the shift. They perceive insecurity, and respect erodes. Authority built purely on affection is fragile. Authority built purely on fear is unstable. The art lies in calibration. Power is rarely isolated. Leaders operate within networks. Friend groups have hierarchies. Teams have informal power centers. Organizations have internal alliances. If you are loved but not taken seriously, stronger personalities will quietly override you. If you are feared but not respected, people will wait for your weakness. Machiavellian realism emphasizes alliance management. Ensure key figures benefit from your leadership. Ensure they also understand boundaries. When alliances are secured and consequences are predictable, power stabilizes. Now here's where it becomes psychological. Fear collapses when you lose control. If your enforcement is reactive, people attribute it to mood, not structure. Shouting signals insecurity. Calm consequence signals authority. Emotional control is the foundation of strategic respect. When you remain composed under pressure, others mirror that seriousness. And seriousness creates gravity. Love may attract, but gravity commands. Social status, in social dynamics, this principle appears subtly. The person who is always available, always agreeable, always accommodating, becomes socially lightweight. They are liked, but not prioritized. The individual who maintains standards for access, who does not tolerate disrespect, creates psychological distance. That distance increases perceived value. This is not manipulation. It is boundary clarity. And boundary clarity generates controlled fear. The fear of losing access. Now we must address the counterpoint. If you obsess over being feared, you drift into paranoia. You interpret normal disagreement as threat. You overcorrect minor mistakes. You tighten control unnecessarily. This creates silent resentment. Fear without proportionality becomes oppression, and oppression breeds sabotage. Similarly, if you reject love entirely, you isolate yourself. Isolation can protect authority temporarily, but long-term leadership requires voluntary loyalty. Strategy without humanity becomes cold inefficiency. This is the balance. Machiavelli described the need to be both lion and fox, strong enough to confront threats, cunning enough to avoid traps. Love alone is fox without lion. Fear alone is lion without fox. Strategic respect requires adaptability. In some situations, warmth builds allegiance. In others, firmness preserves order. Wisdom lies in recognizing which moment you are in. Most modern professionals struggle with this balance. They fear being disliked, so they sacrifice boundaries, or they fear losing control, so they overcompensate with dominance. But sustainable authority operates quietly. It does not beg for approval. It does not intimidate recklessly. It sets standards. It communicates clearly. It enforces calmly. When people know exactly where they stand with you, anxiety decreases, and predictability increases trust. Paradoxically, controlled fear, applied justly, can enhance stability more than affection alone. Respect is not emotional, it is structural. Love creates attachment, fear creates discipline, vert creates consistency. Alliances create security, emotional control creates gravity, fairness creates legitimacy. Severity must be measured. Warmth must not weaken standards. Power must preserve itself. The goal is not to be feared. The goal is to be taken seriously. If you value strategic thinking over emotional reactions, subscribe.